So we have an interesting topic today. It's something that gets discussed pretty often, especially with a lot of new agents coming into the industry. Most new agents that come into the industry have a full-time job. And they're always asking, when should I transition from my job to doing real estate full-time? And you're probably the best person to answer this question because you were a full-time nanny, right?
Full-time teacher, but we can just go with nanny.
Yeah. So you were a full-time teacher. What year was that?
What year did I quit?
You were a teacher from what year?
I was a
to
teacher
what
for
year?
7 years. I
Oh,
quit.
Poor kids. Poor kids. They actually let you teach?
Yes.
No way. Where was this?
Roselle.
In New Jersey?
Yeah, Mike, stop. Come on.
It's all right. So you were teaching
And
for
I was
7
teacher
years.
of the year before I quit, by the way. The year before I quit.
No, that's good. I could see that. No, she's missing a Zillow call. She's going to hate her life right now. There's an opportunity there to make some money. So you were a teacher.
You owe me a lead.
I do. So you were a teacher up until what year?
2020.
Right before the pandemic started.
Yeah.
So 2020. And then you decided to leave full-time, your full-time teaching job to do real estate full-time. So tell us a little bit about that transition.
All right. I'll tell you again.
Answer it.
How-
This is the Zillow Connections team. Press 1 if you're free to talk to
It's a Zillow call.
you.
It's a buyer.
Choose your road.
Oh, how do I say this freaking street name? Fort Kosciuszko.
Properties nearby. We just sent you the details.
How do I say that? It's pending.
When you're ready.
What was the question? Oh, my story. So anyway, all right. I started real estate part-time 2019, and the transition for me was, I knew that I was going to eventually go into real estate full-time, but it's really a matter of, you're never going to be ready, right? Like if you wait until you're ready, you're not ever going to be ready.
Yeah, but there's got to be a
So-
point where you know you're ready. Like there's got to be a point where you're not ready, but you're because it's scary, right?
Of
You're
course, yeah. So
leaving a 9-to-5 job where you have a guaranteed paycheck to go into a commission-based, career.
Right.
So, but
So
there's
for
a
me-
point
yeah,
where
no,
you're
of
like,
course.
all right, I'm ready to make that leap.
yeah, so for me,
I'm
it
ready
was
to believe in myself. When was it?
Right. So for me, it was, I think after I had done it, part-time for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I had done a couple of deals and I had a couple of transactions under my belt, I felt ready. But aside
How
from
many?
that,
How
I
many
did
deals
it.
were? Do you remember? Like
I
how many
did.
deals?
I did 11 part-time.
Okay.
So I did 11 part-time, but I really decided to quit when I had enough in my pipeline to hold me over for a couple of months.
What did that look like?
What do you mean?
Your pipeline.
Oh, I think when I decided to quit, I had maybe like 6 under contract. And I don't know that you need that many, but, it's just enough to, where you're like, oh, I can survive off of this. This is no problem. Even if I don't close, a couple, after that, it's okay. But for me, it's also different, right? Because I was only making like $50,000 a year. So supplementing 50,000.
They overpaid you as a teacher.
Well, I didn't bring home 50, but, I wasn't making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. So
So the decision's
to-
a little.
it was a little bit
easier.
easier, right? Because I'm like, okay, I really only have to supplement.
It's
you
tougher
know.
when you're making like 6 figures.
Yeah, when you're making 6 figures, it's hard. But you can definitely make 6 figures in real estate. It's all about
Correct.
what
But
you do.
if you're making
but
6 figures at a 9-to-5 and you're miserable, like what are we talking about?
yeah, and so for me, I think that the decision was a little bit easier for a lot of reasons. And I wouldn't say that I was miserable. It wasn't that I was miserable being a teacher because I actually enjoyed being
Harassing
a
little
teacher.
kids.
No, I actually enjoyed teaching and, being with children. It was just that I felt that I was very, very underpaid. And not just me, I think teachers in general. Very underpaid, undervalued.
So you knew you weren't going to be rewarded for your hard work.
No, there's no incentive really for us to, be the best teacher, right? Like there's no incentive for us. But, and aside from that, I also felt like no matter what I did, it didn't mean that I was going to get paid more money. So I could be the best teacher, right, in that entire district and still get paid the same amount of money as the worst teacher.
Wow.
It didn't matter,
Yeah.
right? So
Totally different from real estate agent.
yeah. And I also kind of felt like there was not really a lot of room for growth, right? Unless I wanted to go back to school and get like another certification or degree. And I didn't want to do that. So the transition for me was a little bit easier because I knew that in real estate I had the potential to.
Walk us through like the day you made the decision. Like what was going on? In your head? You still remember that?
Yes.
By the
All
way,
right.
did they call you Teacher Gonzalez or Teacher Melissa?
No, they called me Miss Gonzalez.
Oh, okay. Miss
Yeah.
Gonzalez, Miss Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they could say it, a lot of them say Miss Gonzalez. Like they couldn't, because remember they were little, so they
Yeah.
couldn't say the name.
Well, you're
But
little
anyway.
too.
So anyway, the day I quit, I didn't think I was going to quit. Like I didn't wake up that morning and say, I'm going to quit my job today. That was not how my day started at all. So basically, I was having a really bad day. And
Usual.
I was having a really bad day. And then something set me off, a behavior set me off. One of my students was having a really bad behavior. And I felt like I didn't have support that year. So I was already not feeling great about the year in general. And this particular student, you know, had like a meltdown. And then I sent them to art. And I was
What do
in
you
my
mean you sent them to art?
art class.
Oh, okay.
I
Just
sent-
go draw.
No, I sent them to
You're
art
misbehaving.
class.
Go draw.
No. So after he had his behavior, it was time to go to art. So I brought the kids to art, and I went back to my classroom. I was all by myself, and I started crying. And I basically was like, you know what? I'm done. Like this is not for me. So I called my husband. No, actually, I'm sorry. I texted him. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to quit my job today. Are you good with that? And he said, yes. So that was the only reassurance I needed. And then I sat at my desk during art class and wrote my letter of resignation. And I walked right downstairs to my principal's office. He actually wasn't there, but I slipped it under his door rather. And that was it.
Wow. Well, they made you stay on for another 2 weeks, right?
No. So our contract said that we had to stay on for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
But if they had found a replacement, it was December 13th that I submitted the letter. I'll never forget. But he actually didn't read it until the next day. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So December 13th is when I handed in my 2 month,
Resignation.
notice
Yeah.
and my resignation letter. And in our contract, it said that they could keep us up to 2 months. But if they had found a replacement sooner,
Gotcha.
they would let us go sooner. Long story short, they couldn't find anybody to replace me, so they kept me the full 2 months. So
That you're irreplaceable.
it's interesting because I saw some of my teacher friends a couple months ago, and they said that like it was like I started a movement because ever since I left, a lot of other teachers, and look, it's not necessarily because of me. They weren't saying it was me, but it was like I was one of the first ones to go, and then all of a sudden everybody else started quitting, and it was for different reasons, right? Because obviously I think that COVID changed a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a
teachers.
couple articles in the last 2 months where the industry that's seen the most amount of people, professionals leave, has been
Teaching.
teachers.
Yeah, because they're really underpaid and undervalued. I mean, I think that people don't really know what happens.
Yeah, and
how
here's
difficult it
here's the
is.
truth, right? The reality of it, with the credentials that most teachers have, they can go get a job making $30,000 to $40,000, probably more, and in
Yeah.
some cases, almost 100% more than what they're getting paid.
Yeah, right. And
Right.
it's tough, right? Because you spend your money to go to school, and then you have these student loans, and then your salary, you could barely even survive.
Did you spend your money, or was it daddy?
No, I got
Daddy-
a scholarship.
Did daddy pay for
No.
your tuition?
My dad did, but I'm just saying that's
Wait, she
irrelevant.
said she got a scholarship, and now she
just
said
said-
that her dad did.
No, my dad did.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point. I'm just saying because I know, obviously, from being in the profession, what these teachers struggled with. It was like, oh my gosh, I have student loans. Like, how do I live? Like, it's insane.
But let's focus more on like, how many deals should you have in a pipeline? And I think that question, or the answer to that question really, is based on your quality of life. Like if you make 100,000, but you're only spending, let's say, like if your overhead is $1,000 a month, right? Then I think that's an easier decision to have. But if your overhead's like $6,000 per month and you only have 1 or 2 months worth of those expenses in capital reserve, then it makes the decision a little bit difficult because
Yeah.
you need to save up more money, just in case. Because in real estate, it could take 3, 4, 5, 6 months sometimes, maybe even more, depending
close
on
your first deal.
Yeah, depending on how quickly you acclimate, right? So
well, I don't know that there's like an exact number, right? I think it really depends on
I have an idea.
lifestyle,
I have an
right?
idea.
Like, what's your lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? I mean, to your point, how many expenses do you have?
Yeah.
And what's your current salary, right? Like, my current salary was 50,000.
Yeah, but forget your salary for a second, right? Because if you make $200,000 a year, but you could survive on $40,000 a year, then what are we talking about, right?
Right.
I think the rule of thumb, in my opinion, is to have at least 6 to 9 months.
Oh,
worth
yes, that's actually
of-
what my father told me.
Yeah, 6 to 9 months worth of your monthly expenses. So if your expenses are $2,000 per month, have 6 months worth
Yeah,
of that in the bank, which is nothing. It's like
Correct.
18,000, right?
correct.
And so on and so on, right? So I
A
think
minimum,
that's,
I think, of
minimum.
6 months.
Yeah, so because you have to pay your bills, right?
Yeah,
While you're figuring it out, you have to pay your bills, right? And you need to be put at ease, right? But in some cases, some people work even better if they only have 2 or 3 months worth of expenses saved up,
right.
where they have no choice. Like their back is against the wall and they got to figure it out very quickly.
Right.
And a lot of agents that have come through the door in our brokerage, the ones that had to figure it out very quickly, most of them did, right? Because they had no choice,
Right.
right? They worked very well under pressure.
Yeah.
But I think 6 months. Like, would you agree with that? 6
Yeah, I
months?
think 6 months minimum. I mean, at minimum.
you
My
know.
father told me 9 to 12 months is probably better, like a year.
Yeah.
But he's always said that. Like, always have a reserve for you because you just never know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. So figure out your burn rate, right? So that's what it is, right? Whatever your expenses are per month, figure out what your burn rate is, right? If you have $50,000 in your bank and your expenses, total for the year are 50,000, which is obviously about 4,000 a month, right? Then you have 12 months of burn rate sitting in the bank,
Yeah.
right? So you have to figure that out. And how do you do it? Do you wait for these deals to close? What do you do with the money? You put the money to the side.
So what I did is because I was doing it part-time.
You saved every penny, didn't you?
No, so so all the deals that I had closed part-time, I took half of the money and I put it in a savings account. And then the other half I kind of just saved for like taxes and
Yep.
and stuff.
Marketing, et cetera.
Right. So I already had saved money prior to making my decision. So that's what I'm saying. For me, it was a little bit easier to make the decision, but not everybody is fortunate.
No, but I think for a lot of people that are in the same boat or were in the same boat
who are doing it
as
part-time.
you, that are doing it part-time and have a full-time job, and if you've been doing real estate part-time for a year
Right.
and you've closed 6, 7, 8 deals, whatever the case may be, that money shouldn't even be touched anyway, right? You don't need the
Right.
money to pay your bills.
No, correct.
Right.
Correct. Unless you do, unless that's why you went and got a second
Oh.
job. But yes, so I tried to save as much money as possible before I decided to quit. Although, like I said, I did not wake up that morning thinking that I was going to quit. And to be honest, if that didn't happen that day, I don't know that I would quit that soon. That year, I had said to myself, I'm going to quit teaching this year. It's going to be my last year. Right. So the 2019-2020 school year was going to be my last year. So I had planned on leaving, but I'd planned on leaving in June. I wanted to finish out the year. Right. I wanted to finish out the year for my kids and, to be with my students and all that. I didn't want to leave in the middle of the year.
Correct.
But just so happened that, whatever happened that day really sent me off. And then that was it. And I don't regret it. So.
But you shouldn't. You're making 6 to 7 times more money now. I was having a conversation with one of our agents, Dewana. Shout out to Dewana. She's in the same boat right now as you. I hope her boss doesn't watch this video. But, she just started doing real estate about 2 months ago. And we came up with a game plan. We have a goal for her. She,
Yeah.
I went over numbers with her, and she has a goal. She has to have 6 deals closed. And once she closes 6 deals, she has to have another 3 deals in the pipeline, and she's going to leave her job.
Yeah, I think that like going into real estate part-time is not a bad thing.
No,
Right.
I think it's great.
If you start off part-time and there's not a whole lot of pressure, you can kind of learn
Yeah.
and then save your money. And then if you actually enjoy it as much as you had thought you'd enjoy it, then quit. I mean, that's how I feel at least.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I like the part where you said about pressure, right? There's not this huge pressure building up on your shoulder
Right.
where you are freaking out, where it's like, oh my God, you don't know
right,
what
because
to
sometimes when that happens, when you have all this pressure, you forget to like actually
Mhm.
take a step back and like enjoy what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? Because you're so stressed out. So I feel like if there's a little bit less pressure and you're doing it part-time and it's just kind of supplemental income, you actually enjoy it a lot more.
I agree. I don't usually
It's
agree much
kinda-
with Melissa, but today I agree.
It's kind of like how I see Mike part-time. I enjoy his company much more because I only have to deal with him part-time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So for those out there, if you're listening, obviously, and you're thinking about doing real estate full time, set a goal for yourself, right? Set a goal, set a budget, know what your burn rate is, like audit your expenses because that's extremely important, right? And then make that leap, right? No one is ever ready.
No,
I know with your
you'll
case
never
it was
be
different,
ready.
but make that leap, believe in yourself, right? And fully immerse in the business when you know deep down you are as close as being ready as possible because it's scary.
I think that like the biggest challenge that all agents have is that it's a commission-based job. That's it. Like that was
I don't
the
think that's
biggest
a challenge.
for me that was the biggest adjustment. I was not making a lot of money, but I knew that every month I was going to get paid X amount of money. I knew that. And in real estate, there's no guarantee. Some months you might close like 20,000, you might get paid 20,000 and then the next month you're not going to get paid anything. Just the way it goes, right? It's not consistent.
Correct.
And I think that's the biggest
But that's
adjustment
why,
for a lot of
But that's
people.
why real estate agents have to understand that, right? Like it's different than a 9-to-5 job. And I say this all the time, right? When you're at a 9-to-5 job, you can fool around all day long, a day, 2 days, 3 days, and you're still going to get paid more than likely, right? More than likely, you're not going to get fired. As a real estate agent, you can't do that because you're just robbing yourself, right? So you have to be productive. I'm not going to say every day, but you need to move the needle forward in your business consistently.
Yeah, you have to do something that's going to
Absolutely.